Hello, and welcome to podcast number 32.
Hello.
Hello. And our guest this week, so that Jaco can also say hello, is Jaco Van Gas. He was previously in the Parachute Regiment, did 2 tours of Afghanistan, walked the North Pole, attempted Everest, Paralympic medalist, world silver medalist. Probably one of the most impressive guests we've ever had on. Welcome.
Oh, hello guys, thank you. Oh, yeah. That's a nice introduction.
Yeah, I did one for Phil once, it was terrible.
Cheers, mate.
So we're just going to fire through the news quickly. BC have asked for my bike back again. I've lost it, don't know where it is. This episode will be far less drunk than the last podcast. They got a bit out of hand when Rob started sticking one out on a Friday night.
In front of us as well.
That's why there was no video for that if you're one of the few people that actually watch this on YouTube. I'm just back from Edinburgh. Had a little Dragon's Den day today. Had to do a pitch in front of some investors.
What's that? A Dragon's Den day?
You never heard of Dragon's Den?
I know Dragon's Den, but was it actually the dragons? Or?
No, it wasn't the dragon.
So you just had to pitch to some company.
Yeah.
How did it go?
It went pretty well. I'm pretty confident we'll get through to the semi. Oh. And talking of businesses.
What business did you pitch?
I can't talk about it. I signed an NDA, so I can't talk about it. It's a product. It's a product.
It's just a product.
Yeah.
It's something.
It's going to change the world.
Is this a product that's already available on the market?
No, there's exclusive intellectual property there. Genuinely. It's,
I'm excited to see it.
It's pretty exciting. Talking of businesses, you're starting a business.
I'm starting a business.
Are we allowed to talk about what it is? Probably not.
Yeah, it's
Are we?
Are we?
I don't go for it.
Well, you involved as well.
Well, I'm the CEO.
Well, I've had the idea. A coffee company. I'm selling coffee.
And we've also got Owen Dool coming in as well, so he'll be, I don't know, secretary?
Yeah, or just marketing.
He's marketing.
Bitch. I don't know.
It really annoys me. Like, if people don't know where to place you in an office, they put you in marketing. That's why I exist.
Is this what I'm doing. It's why all your jobs are marketing.
It's really annoying. Any more news, Phil, or no more news?
No, we got an Instagram account for the coffee company as well.
Is that up?
Yeah, I've got sorted.
Give it a shout out then.
Follow us at 5 Rings Coffee.
Oh, and if there's ever
see if we actually get any followers, that people actually listen to this.
People listen to this intently.
I'll just go follow right now.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I don't even follow it. I'm the CEO. I don't follow it.
You're not the CEO. I'm the CEO.
No, you're not.
Of course.
No.
Me and Duo start together. Should we get Callum involved and do a sort? Yeah, maybe.
I'm the creative mastermind.
You haven't created anything yet
because I've been busy creating other stuff. My time is very precious.
Creator of creating.
I think
creating.
We will see.
Okay. Well, if anyone's still listening, we're going to continue with the actual podcast.
Sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Do you want to buy in?
Hey, if there's space.
I mean, at the moment the fee is 0 for the shares.
So 0 fees. Yeah. I think you can do with another CEO. And then,
another CEO. Anyway, I'll be the tie-break guy anyway, because you and Dool will have a third, and then I'll be the guy who comes in and solves all the issues.
Good.
Nice.
Well, we'll see.
So Jaco, I think we've obviously got tons to get through, but you cycle for GB, but you probably, like Phil, don't have a British accent, especially.
Yeah.
So grew up in South Africa.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you ended up in the UK, I guess?
Yeah. So as you say, born, bred in South Africa. I had a very lovely, I loved my upbringing. I had a perfect split between city and farm. My grandparents had a farm in quite a little rural part of South Africa, and we lived in a city and go to school there, lived there during the week, and then basically most weekends and from the first day of holiday till the very last one, we would spend on the farm somewhere. So quite split, but absolutely loved every bit of it. And then I've always had a passion for initially it was the police force in South Africa. I wanted to become a police officer. But with the changes in South Africa that happened after 95, and just corruption charges and all kinds of stuff like that, the country kind of, especially the police force, and then onto the army, really crumbled. And I always had a passion for one of those two. And I kind of had to rethink of where I wanted to go. My dad had a little family business, and the kind of natural kind of pathway was to follow in his footsteps. So once I left high school, I did a bit of part-time studying, some computer engineering, some sport degrees and stuff like that. And just ticking over with that, I worked with him, learning the contacts, the people he works with, how the business is run. I actually started up my own little business. What my dad kind of gave me the opportunity, and I made firelighters.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, obviously South Africa braai barbecues. Most of the time.
Are we talking like hipster, eco-friendly ones, or just the good old white, whatever they're made of?
Yeah, the good old white stuff, mate.
Nice,
It's highly, highly flammable.
Terrible for the environment, but
exactly.
I'm sure it's an incredible product.
So I had a few little products that so making my own firelighters, and then we had a few other products that we sourced, and they sold along that, briquettes and charcoal and stuff like that. And like I said, it was tiny and it worked. It was just something to get my teeth stuck into. But I had this underlining goal still of I wanted to achieve something on my own. And there was this burning desire just to do something else. And I was just like, well, I've got this passion. I've always had this passion for the army. And through a friend, I've heard that actually you can sign up for the British Army because South Africa is part of the Commonwealth. It enables you to do that. And quite a few South Africans and other Commonwealth countries do that. So I looked into it and I thought, that's it. I'm going to do that. So I had what you call up here, a pickup. We call it a bucky in South Africa.
Okay.
So I had my own pickup. So I sold that. I had a hi-fi. I sold my hi-fi. So I gathered cash of everything I sold, bought an airplane ticket and came to the UK.
It's like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Pretty much, yeah. It's not far off.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that my sister lived in the UK for a number of years. So she helped with kind of obviously picking me up at the airport, getting settled in, getting a room in a shared house, and then just starting that process and how to open a bank account, getting your national insurance numbers and all that kind of stuff. So
did you get grilled as well when you got your national insurance number?
Yeah.
Phil had to go for an interview to find out if he was a genuine Brit.
I didn't even know how hard it would be. I've just been told, just turn up to there and then they will give you national insurance number. Got absolutely grilled.
And you didn't even speak much English at that point.
Yeah, and the tables next to me, there people like getting shouted at like proper. It was pretty hard.
Gosh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've had it tough, mate.
I can't remember it being that tough, to be honest. Yeah.
Maybe you were just polite and could speak English.
Yeah, I think the issue...
Wave and smile.
I think the issue was that my English wasn't that good.
Oh, right, okay.
Say that again. Okay, can you say that again?
So what's your kind of take on South Africa? Because I guess Phil and I have like a real kind of tourist impression of South Africa. Like we love it. We got like a little vlog and we went to go and see penguins and all that kind of thing, Cape Town and all that. But it seems like you meet a lot of South African expats in the UK who have a very different opinion of what that country can be, because it tends to be that most of the ones that ended up here moved here for a reason, I guess.
For a reason, yeah. Exactly, and especially where you've gone, if you've gone Cape Town or the Western Cape and that area, Stellenbosch, Plettenberg Bay, that is just a little piece of heaven, and it is almost a different country within South Africa. And when I go home, that's where I want to go, because it really reminds me of the old days. It's still kind of, it's a good memories from it. But yes, South Africa is in a very bad place. South Africa is absolutely ruined with corruption, poverty, crime. It's changed massively from when I grew up in it to what it is now. I tend to find myself getting very upset when I do follow the news and follow the stuff that's going on currently. So I actually extract myself from that. And it's not more of a bigger shock when I do kind of put myself back in that situation or scenario. It's just like, when I do go back and I go, wow, I didn't realize it's changed that much, or the lengths and the extremes people go through to feel safe or to protect their, well, whether it's a property, their family, or their belongings, really. So you pretty much, my mum lives in a secure, basically retirement village, and it's got guards, it's got gates, it's got electrical fencing, and then you step outside of that, it's a different world. So yeah, it's quite a torn country, and it's sad because a lot of people think it's apartheid's the fault of that. But I'm not saying it isn't, but not much has actually changed over the years. But there's also an element of reverse apartheid that we've seen now. That yes, people of color, black people, and rightly so, are given a lot more opportunities and equality, which is perfect. But it's actually turned the other way as well, because the white, especially a white male, there is literally a picking order. It's you're a black lady, black female, colored female, colored man, black man, then whatever else in between. And as a white male, you are literally at the bottom of the picking order. Whether that comes to jobs, opportunities, university, tuition, anything like that, that is how it is. So yeah, it's everyone that has ever gone to South Africa say it is the most amazing place, and it is. But it's the perfect holiday destination, and the more beautiful memories you can create from that, the better. But actually living there, staying there, it's so much different, and you settle in. And I found myself there. I've had an opportunity to I've been there not long after my incident happened or occurred. I spent about a 5-6 week period there. And again, the first 2 to 3 weeks was just phenomenal. Again, the way people treat you, my family, my friends, and everyone that wants to see you. But once you start settling back into normal life, I found myself again getting frustrated with the traffic and the way, what we call taxis over there, which I'm assuming you guys will be familiar with, the minibuses. So not taxis that we have here, but the minibuses that carry people from the townships into the town, from townships to the town and back. They just basically do what they want. There is no traffic rules for them. And you get fed up with them, the way they drive, a lot of poverty. There's a lot of people on street corners begging and stuff like that. And you find yourself frustrated, angry, seeing all the wrong suddenly. Yeah. And that's what I started feeling. And that was just being there for 5-6 week periods of time. So basically going back, get a little bit of South Africa back in me, and then leaving it again. For me, that's the best way. But yeah, it's a country that's sadly in a very, very bad place.
I think, Phil, you kind of feel the same way about Germany.
Do I?
Last time you went to Germany, you came back and you were like, fuck, it's weird.
It was a very different story. You're going to South Africa, aren't you, in January?
I am, yeah. I mean, I was thinking about moving there until I heard that monologue, and now I'm thinking about it again.
Yeah. What would you do out there?
What I do? Well, my dream is to spend summer. So summer in South Africa, summer in the UK. Yeah. I don't know what kind of job you can do for that, but that'd be nice.
I mean, that is a dream.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that same.
Yeah.
But I would say, Cape Town is probably the place to do that.
I got it described to me as it's not Africa, it's Europe, basically.
Yeah.
It's not the same. I mean, that made me a bit disappointed as well, because I was fully embedded in the African experience and thought, I'm here.
Yeah.
So let's start to talk about your kind of British military career then, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was leading up a little bit earlier, and you were talking about the kind of toughness of the training and how to get into it, because I'd say maybe Commonwealth countries have a slightly different opinion of what it is to be in the British military than it is for kind of natives, we'd say. So I guess the way it's pitched in the UK is they're always trying to kind of lure you in with these promises of holidays the whole time, and it seems like you can't lose. And then maybe for the Commonwealth countries, it seems like that's a bit more of a legitimate kind of thing as part of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't know. You either get people that are really massively into it, like yourself, or you get people who it's kind of it's the option in their town, I guess, and it's an escape from that, I guess. But you said the training was super tough when you first got in.
Yeah. I mean, it was not just a training; it was a weather on top of that. A South African boy. I came over. I spent a number of months here, and then once I got the final letter from the army saying you're starting your basic training on this date, and you have to be here, I was like, right. I had a quick stint back home, a few weeks, and then I came back, and I came out of a South African summer into the 2nd of February 2007. I started my basic training in Gatwick Garrison up north, and you get issued this tiny little green t-shirt, PT shorts that, I mean, I would probably describe it as boxers, rather than shorts. They are all your leg is exposed. These, what are they called?
Sounds good, doesn't it, Phil?
It sounds great.
Silver.
Phil's a fan of short shorts.
Silver Shadow. It was like an old Adidas trainer, like really old kind of retro. That, and that's it. You're standing 6 o'clock in the morning outside of the block. It's 3 degrees. I was dying. And then you go for a run. And then we had a Jeep in front of the runners to break the ice where there was puddles of water, to break the ice so that we can run through it. I was in bed. I was absolutely... So apart from just the training in itself, dealing with the cold was a next level as well. We were on exercise. We were doing a firing exercise, not live, mock exercise. And it was a morning attack. The corporal was pointing to me where the enemy is, gave me the tap on the shoulder that I can engage. And as he tapped me, my hands were that cold, I couldn't switch the safety catch off on my rifle, and it felt like my thumb was going to break off. And the harder I pushed, the more painful it is, and I could not get the safety catch off. So I've got a corporal above me kicking my head in, literally like kicking my head with my helmet on, and going, fire at the enemy, Van Gas. You're going to get killed in a second. And I could not even get the safety catch off. He eventually realized, like, okay, well, why is this guy not firing? And realized that my hand is that cold. I couldn't even get the safety catch off. And then and he's like, right, when we get back to the stores, we'll get you some proper gloves. And then it's usually South Africans and the Fijians get an extra kit order. We get extra thick socks. We get extra thick gloves. We get a few extra layers that we're allowed to wear. But so like I say, so on top of that, then yes, you have the brutality of the training in itself. And it's a looking back on it now, it's a great system they have. Obviously going through it, you think it's fucking horrible. You're thinking, what in the world is this? If this is the army, or if this is what the army is going to be like for the next couple of years, I might as well just hand my notice in now. But yeah, you start off with a basic. So that anyone from the infantry to the intelligence to whichever regiment or segment you join of the army, of the armed forces, have a 6-week basic. That literally day 1 to day 6 week is the same across the army, and it's your basic map reading, field craft and stuff like that.
That's what we've got in Germany, isn't it? Where you have to...
Why are you saying isn't it? I've not joined the German armed forces.
Well, you know a lot. I think in Germany you have to go through 2 months of...
Is it like a national service?
National service, yeah. 2 months of basic army training.
Yeah.
You either do that or you work in a care home, but I think you have to work in a care home for 4 months longer or something like this.
If you go back, would you have to do that?
I think I've got called up, but then you have to prove that you live in the UK. No, you got a job in the UK.
So you've done a Donald Trump then.
But a lot of the German guys in the team, they actually have to do it.
Right? Yeah.
And it's a great excuse when they go like a bag of shit on the track. They're like, oh, I've been in the mountains for 6 months with no food.
All of them say it, don't they?
Yeah, I know. And then they just kick your ass, basically. It's really depressing. And then you ended up finding your way into the parachute regiment.
Yeah. So basically, you do your first 6 weeks, and then you do your... because I joined the infantry and the parachute regiment especially, you then go into your specific training. So that will be infantry orientated, and then that's up until week 18, if I remember correctly. And then we have a thing called P Company. So you have to pass P Company, Pegasus Company, and it's a week of physical and mental endurance. And you're doing 2 tasks or challenges a day, from a 10-mile heavy run, a TAB, that we call it, a tactical advance to battle. That's with full-scale backpack on, army boots, rifle, and it's basically you get in and out of it simulates getting in and out of a combat zone very quickly. Then you do a 2-mile TAB, so that's an extraction. So that's again on a greater pace. You do a stretcher run, so that simulates. So this is a concrete, but it's a steel stretcher that they filled with concrete to the same weight as a soldier with all his body armor on. So it weighs about 130 kilos, and then 4 of you run with it, and then there's 4 people behind, and then you interchange. So basically it's a casualty evacuation simulation. There's a log run, which is the worst thing in the world. And that simulates carrying ammunition to the front line. And it's a telephone pole, the big thick telephone poles. It's one of them, 8 guys on it. There's ropes threaded through it, and you have to run through it, and you have to have your hand kind of, basically you must show forward propel kind of motion. So you can't run with the rope beside you or in front of you. Your hand has to be kind of almost behind you, like you're basically dragging the log. And that is horrendous. And then guys fall off, and then it gets heavier and heavier. And then sometimes you have to let go of yours and then go and pick it up on another point just to balance it out. And so, it's horrendous. And then there's a steeplechase, and there's a milling. So there's a 1 minute mill where you actually fight each other. And it simulates keeping your head up or having the bravery to kind of get up and return fire when people are firing back at you at the right moment. So so you basically box each other for a minute.
Kind of what you see on like TV, this SAS Who Dares Wins program.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
I guess,
and there's reason behind all these
exercises. A lot harder in the real army.
Yeah.
Did it feel in any way a lot more? I guess because so you joined in 2007, and at that point, the UK were engaged in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Afghanistan heavily, yes.
So I guess that must have an increased significance being the basic training, because there's quite a high likelihood that you're going to go off to a war zone after that.
There was almost a definite about going. It was just a matter of when do you go. So each battalion or each regiment does a rotation throughout the army. So it was really just whenever you go. It wasn't a case of if you're going to go or not. It was, are you going soon or are you going 2 or 3 years down the line? But it was a definite that you were going. So yeah.
Can we tap into like what you think the common mindset is between like yourself and the other guys there? Because I think, maybe in the UK or many other countries, people would actively try to not join the army when there's a war going on.
Yeah.
Like, was there different motivations for your kind of comrades and stuff, like being in there as well? Or even what was your motivation knowing that there's a chance that you're going to end up in harm's way?
It was probably more of a motivation for me, the fact that we were going to see active duty. Because again, I could have joined the South African army. Well, first of all, they don't have the reputation that the British army does, and especially the parachute regiment. But a big factor for me was that South Africa is just doing peacekeeping duties somewhere in Angola or North Africa or whatever it might be. We are renowned for having had a very, very prestigious army or defense force, but that's changed massively. So the fact for me was reputation, and it was the fact that, yes, we are actually going to go off and do something. That was actually a motivator. It wasn't off-putting at all. And everyone on that course was in the same mindset, at least to a degree. There was, throughout the training, it becomes more real and more prominent that we are eventually going to go into war and what your job might require. The great thing we had as well is that our staff, so our corporals, our sergeants, and the captain that was training us, they just came off leave having been in Afghanistan 3 months ago. So that's what they brought. They were like, right, we know the kind of skills, the battle that we're facing out there, because the curriculum or the way the training was programmed was always more, it's been adapted over the year for urban kind of, your Northern Ireland kind of stuff, your Bosnia kind of warfare kind of tactics. So they had to come and rip the training books up and rewrite it because of, we just came back from Afghanistan and this is what you need to know.
But they still kept the -2 in shorts.
Pretty much, yeah. that came later.
Yeah, okay.
The heat came later.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Yeah.
And did you end up becoming a sniper within that regiment then, I guess?
So I was a sharpshooter. So I was attached to a sniper, yes. Yeah. So I was due to go on to my sniper course. And actually a number of other promotional courses, but that sadly got cut short due to the injuries I sustained in Afghanistan. So yeah.
So I guess when you actually got the call to go, it didn't feel like much of a shock. It was kind of almost a bit of an ambition.
It was, yeah, because I was lucky in a sense. So I then passed this P company, because you have to pass P company to then receive to then become a parachute. You have to pass P company to then go onto your jumps course. And then once you do your jumps course, then you go into your battalion, whether that's 1 para, 2 para, or 3 para. So there's 3 battalions. And they all play a slightly different role to each other. So passed P company, and then went on to do a jumps course in Bryce Norton. We were quite lucky. That can take quite a long time because it's all weather depending and whether there's aircrafts and stuff like that. Ours went quite smooth, quite quickly, and obviously a great experience jumping out of airplanes and parachuting. So
I want to nail down on this a bit more, because when you say quite lucky, it means like you're going to go to Afghanistan quicker.
Yeah.
So that's the opposite of most people's definition of luck, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Like what do you think you have within you that kind of made you have that aspiration to put yourself in harm's way? Was there something in your upbringing that kind of is quite a selfless? Would you put yourself down as quite a selfless person and wanting to help people? Maybe not the best self-preservation in the world or something like that. I don't know. Like what do you have in that mindset that managed to get you through the training, which is so tough, and then also have such an open mind towards going to an active war zone?
Yeah, there is probably an element of selflessness towards that. But I think there's also an element of what are you training? It's the same. You can convert it to the bike. Why are you breaking yourself day in, day out, whether that's on the track or on a turbo session, or why are you going out for a 4-hour ride when it's pissing outside, and windy and all that kind of stuff? There's a reason for that, because there is that World Champs coming up. There is that, Paralympics coming up. And that's why you do it for. And it's basically the same. We've gone through that training, and our World Champs and our kind of end goal is to go to Afghanistan and basically be in the best form possible in that sense. So being trained up to do our job the best we can and save lives at the end of the day. You go and capture and kill bad guys that will not, be facilitating terrorist events or not just events, but also funding it to go and, blow and kill innocent people all around the world, be that in the UK, the US, obviously France, Germany, all that places, Belgium. You're trying to prevent it. And I think what was frustrating, kind of jumping quite a bit at the moment, but when coming back from something like a tour to Afghanistan, the frustrating thing is about soldiers, which people see as PTSD. It isn't PTSD, it's a frustration about how we put our lives at risk for people to wake up in a bad mood and then stand in a queue, for Starbucks for their coffee and thinking the day is bad, and then getting on a bus to work and then going through that and then going to the gym. They do all that stuff without even thinking, what if this guy blows me up? Or what if this bus drives into a crowd of pedestrians, or whatever it might be? And at the end, that is what we're stopping. It's the picture is so big. The ripple effect is massive, but people don't see that. And like I said, when you've been in that scenario and you just see people being moody, being ungrateful, about silly little things in life, then you go, well, you start asking, why have I actually gone to do that when people are so ungrateful for what it is? Yeah,
for sure. It's interesting you talk about the kind of the public angle a little bit, because there's no getting away from them being two of the most controversial wars in recent history.
Yeah.
Was that an element of frustration for the forces out there, that there was people actively campaigning against it, or is it just seen as that's a political argument and I'm here to do a job?
Yeah, it's basically the latter. At the end of the day, we've been told to go out there. This is your job. This is your role. And yeah, sometimes there is elements of, do you actually agree with it or not? But like I say, again, it comes down to, this is what we need to do. This is what you've been told, and this is your job. And like I say, and then that's where we train and prepare for it as much and as best as we possibly can. So yeah, there was sometimes frustrations about stuff like that. So,
and it wouldn't just be in the military. Like I kind of think, if you're a policeman doing endless drug busts, that someone's just going to place that the next day, and then you're fighting them again and again and again.
Exactly.
And again. So it's an interesting one. But so when you went to Afghanistan and you were in that situation, I guess you went there with some expectations. Did it live up to those expectations? Because I guess you were viewing it in quite a positive light.
Yeah. So especially the first one. Excuse me. So my first tour to Afghanistan, came very quickly, unexpected. I was actually on a training exercise because with the role that I played within, so obviously with the parachute regiment, but with one para, and we're more known as SFSG, a Special Forces Support Group, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. We're a direct support to UKSF. So it required us having other forms of training and being able to do some of the skills and drills that they do in order to help them and support them in all the various different roles they play, which was amazing. So I was actually down in Portsmouth doing some stuff on ribs and ships and all kinds of stuff like that. Great fun. And then the next thing I got this call going, yeah, Van Gass, there's a minibus picking you up, taking you back to Wales and to St Athan, and you've got a week, you're going to Afghanistan. And I was just like, where's that coming from? And basically just I've been picked or selected to a degree where one of the other guys he had a family scenario they were due to go out to Afghanistan, and it was the right decision was made that he stayed back, and there was an opening, and the commanding officer in that time knew me well. As a young private, I've only been 3 months out of basic training. Thought that I'm good enough to step up to the plate to go and do that. So my first role was to go out, and the role went out was to actually train some of the Afghan forces. There was some element of patrolling and engaging the enemy, but majority of that was training the Afghan forces. So, which was a great experience. That lived up to all my expectations, but it grew me as a soldier as well and as an individual, and gave me quite a lot of experience above some of my other, privates, that kind of just passed out the same time as me. So again, it elevated me in that sense. And then I was 7-8 months back in the UK, and then it was our actual official time, because again, one para, we have a separate rotation than the rest of the army. Again, because of the role with SF, we're on a 6-month rotation. So we go out as a company, so not as a battalion. We go out in companies. So that company gets attached to which Special Forces group is out there at the moment. So we will see tours much regularly. Well, basically a tour every year. You'll see that. So
that initial trip, your impression of it didn't change at all, because you're talking about having earlier. We're talking about having this idealistic childhood in South Africa, thinking you want to live there and deciding it's not for you again.
Yeah.
But and we get the same situation, whether it's going to the Olympics or something like that. And these are all pretty terrible comparisons. But it didn't change your mindset about what you wanted to do. It felt like the ideal place. It lived up to expectations.
Exactly. It lived up to expectations, the lifestyle. That camaraderie with the friends, that bond you have with those guys that you do. So no damper at all in any sense. In fact, I couldn't wait for the next tour to come up.
Does it feel like kind of like when we got the race coming up and you get nervous and
yeah,
like looking forward to race? Does it feel the same?
It is. Yeah, there is that nervousness because, like I say, you're literally going to battle. You're literally going to a war zone, but there is an element of you're quite careful about everything you do, and that nervousness, and then you kind of settle into those scenarios. And again, with us as cyclists, I remember my first race ever for GB. It's just, it felt like the world of pressure, and you just want to do well and stuff. And then as you do more, you do kind of relax into what is expected of you, what you're going to do on the day, all the training you've done. So there's an element of that as well. Your training kind of settles in. The more time you spend within that environment, you kind of get used to the heat. Instead of really being careful of every step you take, you actually become more aware of what you need to look for. So, any uneven ground or ground that it looks like someone's taped it with it, like whether,
a sixth sense almost, because they talk
That's
about
right.
firefighters being able to tell when a fire is about to blow up, basically.
That's it.
Like ones that are experienced, they're able to somehow realise when there's a threat of danger.
Yeah.
But it didn't affect you when you came back to the UK? You weren't walking along the street and thinking everything was a threat? Because we talked about
exactly.
PTSD
So not from that tour. No, it didn't. It didn't. And like I say, it kind of actually motivated. I couldn't wait to go out there again. And I think, and again, from my upbringing and stuff like that, it's just, you kind of just settle into it, and you create, you make it livable, and it's something that wasn't hard for us, living in a field for a couple of days and harsh conditions, and then, but what I do loved about it as well, and it's just where the British humour came in as well. We were in absolute dire situations and circumstances, and then that just kicks in, and it just really lightens the whole mood, and you kind of crack on again. But yeah, and then the second tour I was really excited for, because that was a total different role. It was with the actual role of going in and making a real difference, going after high value targets, stopping the narcotic trade, cutting their supply routes. It was fast, it was active, every operation was different. So I played a different role on every task we did. So again, that skill set of you just had to grow with it. You just had to go with it. You were just given responsibilities and just had to live up to the expectations.
But that second tour got cut short, unfortunately, I guess.
That's the one, yeah. So basically, I was fortunate enough so apart from getting injured, I did 5.5 months. And the funny thing is that we literally had 2 weeks left before coming home. And we started packing our bags and getting everything ready slowly but surely. And I literally had a set of trainers and some gym kit, some running kit out. I had a set of army kit out for the daily kind of going into the ops room, getting briefings and stuff like that, because you had to wear a certain kit for that. And then you had your operational kit that you wear on the ground, and your magazines and body armor and stuff like that. And that's literally all I had out. The rest of the stuff was packed away. So I made it really easy for the guys when I got hit, that they didn't have to go and clear up my room or nothing like that. So quite a simple task for them to kind of just
teammate,
go, yep, that's boxed off. Just chuck a few more bits in and then go. But so that got cut short, like I said, by 2 weeks on that night. So yeah.
So the incident was you were essentially hit by an RPG, I guess, like a propelled grenade, and this is something that's really hard to put into context for a lot of people. But is it kind of like, do you remember the moment where it was coming in, or do you just wake up in a hospital and you're like, what's happened to me?
Yeah, no, I remember actually quite a bit of it. So we came back from a very successful operation, very successful. It was during the Afghan elections, and we got intel from American sources that there's a suicide bomber, not a bomb itself, a suicide bombing facilitator. So the guy that actually makes the suicide vests and IEDs, improvised explosive devices. We've been after this guy for a long time, and he's killed a lot of people. He's a bad guy. He's killed troops, civilians, everything going.
And it's indiscriminate, isn't it? So
yeah. And we've been after this guy for a long while, and we got hold of some very secure intelligence of he was in a location, and because of the Afghan elections the next day, they were going to target a number of voting stations. So a number of suicide bombers going to go up, blow themselves, make disruption, and then again, it's all political at the end of the day. So we got really good intel of where this guy was. So quite put everything together very quickly, flew out to target. We operate mostly in the middle of the night, the cover of darkness, having the technology of night vision goggles, the surprise, element of surprise, all that kind of stuff. So I was then that night attached to a sniper, so to help him out. So I was his sharpshooter, and then so carrying his ladders. So we had these telescopic ladders. I think you can buy them in B&Q as well.
Phil bought some for me on Amazon the other day, actually.
There you go.
Yeah, they were good ones.
Yeah, they were actually a great purchase. Shout out to telescopic ladders.
Exactly. so we have that, and you strap a backpack to that, and you flick it on your back, and you're off. And then you're like, you come to a wall or a building that you want to get up, put it up, spend a few minutes or a couple of hours on there, and then constantly just move location, and then collapse them on your back, and we did that all night. very successful. We actually caught this guy. We didn't just get him. We got 8 young men that we suggest or think that was going to be the suicide bombers. And we also got tons of, suicide vests, IEDs, a number of other explosives. Just basically, it was a gold mine. In terms of, it was, we took off a lot of things off the ground that night that could have caused a lot of damage.
When you go on these missions, are you scared when you walk around or you just do your thing and you just block the...
Yeah, so again, on your first couple of operations, you are literally fearing every step you take because the IED threat was just so high. And especially when you're going after someone of high value, they will actually, it's almost like that's their perimeter. They will have a wall, but on the inside of their compound, on the outside, they go, if I'm going to get caught or get catched or shot, I'm going to have IEDs all over the place as well, that if someone steps up, and then usually they're daisy chained as well, so you step on one, that goes off, and then it triggers a number of other ones around it. So in the beginning, like your first couple of weeks on your tour, you're basically crapping yourself every time you get off a helicopter. But again, you settle into it, and you start realizing what to look for and what something might look like, and then you kind of ease into it quite a bit. So not so much, and especially 5.5 months in. Yeah, so not so much. But every operation was different. Like I say, there's times where, a helicopter's landed and there's bullets coming, hitting the roof of the helicopter, and you're like straight into contact. And there's other times where you do a tactical advance in. So you're landing 10, 15 miles outside of a village, and then you walk in, and then again, so as quiet as you possibly can, and then knock on the guy's door, and or before you know it, there's a flashlight and a gun in his face. So there's various tactics, and sometimes it's helicopter abseil down on his roof, and you're in. So it was really down on what the ground looks like, what the operation looks like, what's the best way in. But yeah, there's elements of we settled quite in, 5.5 months in. So yeah.
So let's go back to that evening then, because we were on that track of getting towards, I guess, the incident and stuff. So we were setting up various locations.
So very successful operation, and so we got to a point where we're extracting, we're leaving the site, and we're going to get picked up by the helicopters. So we knew exactly that there was a proven route. There's a route that we knew that was clear, and we had a helicopter landing site already marked out. And on the way there, the pilots of the helicopter called in saying, for some reason, he changed his mind and said, "I'm not happy with it." Can't remember. I'm not sure if they spotted movement nearby or whatever it might be. And especially British helicopters. We have a very, very small fleet of helicopters. So we need to be very sure and careful that the pickup points are safe, that there isn't a nearby building and someone can fire, whether it's an RPG or another form of ammunition that can actually bring down the helicopter. So something spooked the pilot. So he's given us coordinates for a new pickup point. But this is obviously an unproven route. So, the intelligence wasn't done on it. We basically just had to put it in a GPS and follow a route that looks, decent enough to get there. So we did that. And this took us off to basically quite, again, the middle of the night. So undulated kind of area, quite hilly. And about half an hour in, we spotted some movement on the high ground, a number of guys in a patrolling formation. So we went down on one knee. We worked very closely with some of the Afghan forces as well, their special forces. And because they speak the language, we said, a small group of them, go forward, tell these guys to we need to do some searches on them, conduct some searches, and then we'll be moving through. Just keep them close and then let them go again. And that will be it. So they did that. They shouted out, and before we knew it, these guys because we couldn't identify weapons initially, and then two of them had weapons. They pulled it out. Didn't know where we were. They couldn't quite see us, but just opened up with a spray of AK-47 in our general direction. So this initially open it, the contact.
If you do see them holding weapons, is that just you're permitted to engage and shoot to kill, basically?
Yes, yeah. So we followed Geneva Convention, but basically they need to be a threat to our lives, and they were once they opened fire.
Yeah, that's it.
So even if we actually did identify weapons before we approached them, we still need to approach them because we're confined to those rules. So they weren't an immediate threat to our lives, like I say, until they actually opened fire on us. But which they did, and we had these guys lasered up, and anyway, so we dropped them very quickly. But what very soon became apparent was that we were taking on a much larger force than we anticipated, because not just these couple of guys on the hill that was firing back on us, there was muzzle flashes from different firing points all in front of us and kind of to the side of us. And eventually it came out that it was a Taliban training camp that we didn't even know exist or was in the area.
Oh, what a nightmare.
So basically we stepped into a hornet's nest, basically. So about 50 minutes later from that first couple of bullets, we're now into an intense firefight. Absolutely. Again, apart from getting injured, it was one of the best nights of my life and one of the best firefights I've ever been in. It was crazy.
How many guys of you, British guys, were there, and then how many Taliban do you think were there?
Gosh, so we were about, I would say 15, what we called on the ground white eyes. So 15, I would say there was 15 SAS operators. There were 6 of us of SFSG, and then about another 15 or 20 Afghan special forces that we work with. And we don't know. We were probably 50, 80 of them, probably even more. So it got that intense that we had to get fire support from a Spectre gunship, which is just the coolest thing in the world. It's a Hercules plane with massive cannons out the side of it, and it just basically has to fly on an angle to fire to kind of counteract the kind of force that the cannon kind of puts out. And our JTAC, the guy that calls that in that night, did a phenomenal job, because we were starting to get overrun. They actually tried to overflank us or to right flank us, so sending a section of guys around and then coming in from the side. And luckily, again, the INS guy, the Spectre gunship, picked that up. And that's where I was. So we were towards the back to where these guys were trying to flank us. So this came over the radio. So we turned our attention to that. So we then open up, engage on these guys. And that's where our attention was. So we stopped them. But I was very close to a PKM gunner, so an Afghan soldier with a machine gun. So he was firing, and when he was firing, his machine gun was spitting a very big flame. So it was quite visible about where he was, and I was only a couple of meters away from him. And I was quite aware of that. I was like, I don't like that. So I kept moving, but again, you're always within his vicinity. So I would fire and then go down, move a meter to the left or to the right. So because that's how we pick them off. We see the muzzle flash, and I'm like, okay, I know where he is, and then fire towards that. But if they will see our muzzle flashes, but then the next time I fire, I'm a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. So I'm not quite where I was the last time.
And how deep in the shit are you there? Are you hearing bullets come by you? So you get like coming past.
So at this moment, we were knee deep into the shit, because like I say, we were properly nearly getting overrun here. We were on the border of getting, falling back, taking steps back into retreating from where we came from. And then we said, right, a last stance, let's get the Spectre gunship in. So there's rules and regulations for this, where they can fire and how close to blue, how close to friendly the guys us on the ground, how close they can actually fire to us. And there's certain call signs where they can come danger close, danger close, and then basically there's a red line, and we went well past that red line. And this is why I said that JTAC that night did the most phenomenal job, because he called in the fire. Basically, the guys were not much further than 10 meters away from us, and that's a big no. They can't even fire that. So once it came in, the call came over the radio, go, right, heads down now. And we literally just laid as flat as we can. And then the ground underneath you was shaking. There was debris, there was everything falling on top of you, just to get these guys moving back or giving us a bit of breathing space so we can do the next, anticipate the next move and where we go. So the JDAC did an absolute phenomenal job, and he saved many lives that night, many lives. So pretty punchy. Like I say, we were deep, knee deep in the shit there. And as I mentioned earlier, I had this PKM gunner not too far from me. And it's about, like I say, so just after this big support fire came in, we're back on our knees, returning fire. And it's at that moment that my sniper partner then shouted magazine. So he goes down on his belt buckle as flat as he can, and then puts on a new magazine, old one off into a jacket pocket or into the case, and then new one on. And when he was doing that, when you do that, the drill is that you cover fire him. So you basically double the rate of fire that you're already putting down, just so the enemy stays suppressed. And then once he's back in. And so as he was doing that, I was giving covering fire to him. And at that stage, that's when 2 RPGs came from our left flank. So the first one came over our heads and exploded in the distance, fired high, and then the second one was fired low. And this is the one that was just ricocheting and bouncing off the ground. And the way an RPG works is there's 2 settings. There's either an air burst or there's an impact burst. And this was on an impact burst, but so it's got a little muzzle on the front that it needs to make contact with something, and then the warhead sets off. So this was just bouncing and ricocheting off the ground. And as I was giving covering fire, I can see this red glow in my night vision goggles heading towards me, and the sound of this rocket just getting louder and louder and louder. And I knew this is going to be close. Like, I just had this feeling like, fuck, this is going to be either going to hit me or it's going to touch me, something like that. And in that split seconds reaction, I just turned my back to it and twisted my head away. And I had the telescopic ladders on my back. So the rocket clip, so that nozzle hit the side of the ladders that I was carrying on my back, and that initiated the blast. So it was
a direct hit, pretty much.
So yeah, so basically
is a direct hit.
Yeah. So that hit it. So that detonated the warhead, and then the blast basically blew me 5 meters away from my position. But in that instance, that moment, that severed my arm. Big blast wounds to my leg, shrapnel wounds to my side. But none of this that I was aware of. I fell to the ground. It was probably milliseconds or seconds, but it felt forever. You know, when time just slows down. Absolutely everything just slows down. I then just heard still the firefight in the background. And it was, my training just kicked in, and all I was thinking, I need to get back into this firefight. And I was trying to sit back up and return fire. And by holding my rifle in a correct firing position, my rifle just fell to the ground. And it's then when I was looking down that I realized I've lost my left arm. I saw some glows on me as well, so pieces of shrapnel still on fire. So I patted that out. And then I carry a tourniquet on my chest. Took the tourniquet off and applied it to my left arm, but I couldn't do it up tight enough. I was too much in shock, and then it's really painful doing it. Luckily, one of my teammates realized I was out of position after the blast. It's quite a bit of a shock to everyone, but he was looking around. Where's Jaco? Gosh. And he just kind of saw me kind of moving about. He came crawling over, realized I was injured. I said, help me with the tourniquet. So he did that up, and then he radioed in for the medic. Because, again, where the rocket hit me was the side of my radio, some magazine pouches as well. So I was quite lucky that didn't go off. But my radio was destroyed. I had no comms whatsoever. So he radioed in, and then very soon I received medical treatment. And then the first thing the medic said to him is like, that tourniquet needs to go more. And he said to me afterwards in the hospital, when we caught up, he's like, I thought I'm going to snap your arm off. Like the bit you had left, he's like, literally, I thought I'm going to snap it off. because to get that artery all the way to the bone to make it stop bleeding it takes a lot of force. It takes a lot of pressure.
I found that quite surprising that you were awake for a lot of that experience.
Yeah.
Because I guess from hearing other stories, you presume that you just be knocked out cold from that from a direct hit from an RPG.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember that clearly. And then for me, that stood out as well was my leg. Like I broke my ankle really badly, and all I was moaning about was my ankle. And the medic was getting fed up with me because I'm like, is my ankle all right? Have I got my leg? Have I got my leg? And I can see it, but the pain and the feeling was just so different. The arm was in so much shock. I couldn't, it was like in and out. I could feel it and then I couldn't. And then the kind of nerves was just obviously all over the place. But the whole night I was like, is my ankle all right? Have I lost my foot? And they're like, no, you've got your foot. Obviously, I didn't know about all the other injuries I sustained. It was just the pain was so focused on that one area that I thought, that is my biggest injury. But yeah, it wasn't. And they had to kind of really see to, obviously the arm was the biggest one. And then they start patting you down and go, they check your, clean hands and then pat you down. Is there any blood anywhere? And right, there's a lot of blood. So I ripped part of my arm open here. So I was pissing out blood underneath my armpit. Then I had a collapsed left lung. I had the shrapnel wound, so I was pissing outside on, blood out of my side. And then I've lost a third of muscle and tissue on my left thigh. So once they rip your clothes off, they're like, oh, we've got to deal with that as well. And all I'm going is like, is my ankle okay?
Yeah.
Like, is my ankle okay? Yeah. And they're like, we've got so much more to deal with than just your ankle. Your ankle's fine.
Well, it's such a crazy situation you end up in. It's like you're talking about where you set up to do your rifle. It's like, because there's so much adrenaline and shock kicking in, I guess it becomes quite surreal. You're not aware of the gravity of the situation at that time, I guess.
That's it, yeah.
Was it ever kind of touch and go at that point? Because it's a serious list of injuries there.
Yeah. So I lost a lot of blood, very quickly. And so they had to then restrict morphine intake as well. So then, obviously, as the adrenaline kind of settles down or comes back down, the pain starts to kick in. Yeah. And that's when I was really like, wow, this is real now. But then
I forget my ankle. Yeah, everything else is really bad.
Exactly, I'm burning all over. Just give me as much morphine as you can. And but the thing is with that is obviously that slows your heart rate down massively. So then they're like, well, we can't bring your heart rate down too much because you just shut your eyes and go into coma, and then you can actually die from it as well. So then they had to kind of regulate that, and it was. That became quite a bit, like I said, a bit more real. And then we radioed, and again, as I was going through this, I can still pick up, some of the radio talk and stuff like that of the other guys' radios. And we were obviously immediately trying to get helicopters in, but because of this firefight that we were still engaged. And there was a time when I was getting treated by the medic where they stopped, they laid over me. Again, everyone got back down. We had to get the Spectre gunship in again. So again, that gunship came danger close to where we were, purely again just to push the enemy back. And I remember laying there and just the ground and this debris just falling on top of us. And then the medic kind of got off of me and then carried on. So there's all this. But because of the situation we were in, and again, the situation we're in with British helicopters and the scarcity of the aircraft is that they were like, we cannot come in. It's too much of a high risk for the chopper to get shot down. And they were like, you need to either move them or neutralize the enemy, which we obviously were trying massively hard. But, there was, a big bunch of them.
Is that... On a deflection, is that a frustration that the helicopters weren't more disposable? Because I guess the Americans just, lose about 100 a day and don't give a shit.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the US Marine Corps in itself is a small part of their army. Just the Marine Corps itself has more aircraft capability, not just aircraft, just general capability than our forces put together. That's our Navy, our Air Force, and our Army. But yes, so as you mentioned there...
It sounds really strange for them to say, like, you're dying on the battlefield, essentially.
Pretty
and they're
much,
saying, we've got to save the helicopter.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, in the US, the Vietnam famously, chucked them off the edge of aircraft carriers because they couldn't have any space for them and stuff like that.
They couldn't have any space for them, yeah. And that's the situation we were in. But luckily, that distress signal got picked up by what was called a flipper call sign, so an American call sign. And they were just like, we're in the area, we can come in. And there's an element of, you know, when there's, whether it's songs or certain sounds or anything like that remind you of something, you know, it brings you back. That sound of a Chinook, I will never ever forget. And even now, when I hear a helicopter, and especially a Chinook, because it's quite a distinctive sound with that double rotors, takes me back to that night, because I remember it. I remember them coming in, and I knew, right, you know, I'm going home, dead or alive, either way. But I knew I'm going home.
Going to friendly territory. Yeah.
Do the helicopters just take the bullets then? They're just.
So some of them are armored, yeah. So some of them are, you know, they've got some armor on, so they can take some hits. So up to small arms, AK-47 rounds, and slightly bigger. Not so much RPGs. Obviously, they've got flares and stuff like that. But again, a distinctive memory of that night because of these helicopters in this American helicopter. We all wear little IR, illuminous kind of little lights on our helmets. So anyone that didn't have that and looked like an enemy, there was this guy, a door gunner with a minigun, and he just basically obliterated anything that moved. I remember the Chinook flying pretty close over our heads, and there was just this flame out of the side of the helicopter, and you know, just that minigun that. And that was all I hear. And then, like I said, anything that moved that didn't have a little IR light on, you know, they got the good news. And that's how they came in. So they just opened up fire, landed about 5 meters from where I was laid down. And we run straight onto it, did a head count. And there was a helicopter, there was a chopper. There was a doctor.
A chopper than the chopper.
A chopper on the chopper. So yeah. So, and this doctor just seen straight to me and literally like, right, he's still bleeding out there. And I was still, so again, I had this cut underneath my armpit, and I was just pissing blood out of it, losing tons of blood of it. And he was just like, yeah, that's a problem. And basically just stood with his left foot onto my left shoulder with all his weight, and just basically
on the collapsed lung.
On the collapsed lung, and just clamped that artery.
Yeah.
And then just talking to the pilots, going, yeah, giving them an update. And before it, you can feel kind of lifting off, and off we go. So yeah.
I kind of it's actually quite interesting, because hearing you talk about that story, although it's traumatic, I really actually do sense your excitement for that evening. And for me, that sounds like I'm kind of struggling with the concept in my head, because it is such an instant of trauma, but at the same time, like the way you're almost passionately talking about the fire gun coming in, and, you know, shrapnel coming over your head and all that kind of stuff, and various acts of heroism, it kind of is starting to make sense to me slowly that although that was one of the worst nights of your life, it was also one of the best firefights you'd ever had. Yeah. But I think to most people still, like, it sounds like a Hollywood movie. Yeah. I think if it's actually me that's in the line of fire, I'd have a different take on it, I guess.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Because you see these things in movies or play computer games. Yeah. You don't really, like you said here, you know, sometimes when you come home you worry about, how your leg's feeling. But there's actually people out there doing like when you come home you play computer games. There's actually people out there who do it, and it happens in real life. Yeah. You don't think about it when you like riding your bike or whatever. It's
those computer games are made and based on real life events.
It's hard to imagine that it actually happens.
Yeah, it's a bit like when people join the police force and they think it's car chases and bank robberies, and it's nothing like it. They're actually on police community support and just walking around and dealing with a local yobbo. So obviously you ended up in this bad way, and there was a quote I found during the research which I find like really interesting. So you said, I began to see my injuries as an opportunity for me, which kind of implies that obviously there was a really dark time where it was seen as a total disaster.
Yeah.
Can we talk through that recovery process a little bit, and ultimately how we ended up getting, I guess, as you listing it as more or less an opportunity and a positive?
Yeah. I was in a very dark place, because so I woke up, and then, you know, I was literally the fittest, the strongest, and in both mentally and physical shape that I've ever been. You know, the best shape I've ever been in my life.
Having stalked your Instagram, and seen some old photos of you in the army,
Yeah.
you put most of the British guys to shame as well. This guy is shredded, he's tanned, he was the fittest guy in the British army, let alone in his own life. There's a picture of some guy with a beer belly holding a can in his hand, and then you're standing next to him like some kind of Hollister model.
There you go. Yeah. So see, it's all about, up massive as well. That's what tours usually are. You literally just hit the gym as hard as you can, and then a bit of running to keep the pounds off, and then, going shooting people at night. So
but then obviously there's a stark comparison after that.
Yeah. So exactly that.
Physical perfection
I was, like you say, literally to physical perfection, to waking up, having nurses feeding me, having to drink a protein shake out of a straw, trying to feed my body to recover. Having a colostomy. From the injuries I sustained. I didn't even know what a colostomy is. I've never seen one. I've never even heard of one. I was like, what is this thing that's stuck onto me? And it had to be explained to me what a colostomy is and how it works. Having a catheter. And then I look at my leg going, why is my leg in this massive splint and, upright and everything? So, well, you've broken your leg various places and you've lost almost half of it. So yeah, it was just that massive shock of literally, like I say, from being in the best shape and doing the job that you love, living the life at one point, and you literally wake up, which to me felt like the next day, which was eventually 7 days later, out of an induced coma, to seeing your friends and family faces around you and you being in a hospital bed. It was a massive shock, massive. And all I can think was, literally from the moment I opened my eyes, was, how do I get back to Afghanistan? How do I get back to go and be a soldier and play the role that I've trained for, that I love, and that I want to do? And that was very hard when, like I say, you're bedbound, you're having people having to, bed wash you, and you literally go from, a night ago, I was saving lives to a degree and making a difference in the world to now being basically a vegetable to a degree, or absolutely useless. So that was a massive shift for me. And yeah, obviously there's loads of support from friends and family, but as life goes on, as the days tick past, people have to go back to work, and people have to go back to their lives, and you start getting left alone a little bit more on a daily basis, until eventually you're on your own, apart from, the nurses coming to feed you, or, just the normal routines of the hospital. But then you have all this time to think, and that became a very dark time for me, because all I wanted to do was go back to Afghanistan, and I was struggling to kind of accept what happened to me, and the fact that night that may not be the case, that I can go anymore. And there was a big battle between my mind and my body in terms of the physicality of what I can do, and then my mind going, yeah, I want to be back in Afghanistan, but my body's going, mate, half of me is missing. We need to recover first. So yeah, and then all these thoughts and processes of going, you start thinking, well, why did this happen to me? Then you start blaming yourself. Was I a bad soldier? Did I do something wrong? Did I not conduct my training well? Did I put myself as a target? You start asking yourself, did I do stupid stuff, and why did I get hit? And then the next level on from that is like, actually, well, then you start feeling guilty about why did you survive? And then you start asking yourself questions about how life is going to be, and actually, would I have been better off dead than what I am now? Because I look down on myself going, I can't do nothing at the moment. The scars was horrendous. Will I be alone all my life? Who's going to find something like this attractive? From that point of view as well. What will I be able to contribute to life? Will I find a job again? Am I going to be a burden on society? All that questions. And then the easiest thing is just to think that you're better off dead, really.
Do you get psychology support at this time, or do you have to deal with it yourself?
There is an element of dealing with it yourself quite a bit. And this was issues that's been brought up repeatedly and quite extensively. And later on, the support came in a lot quicker. They realized that guys needed that a lot quicker. And and how that might look like. But I had to go, and a lot of people as well before me, again, had to deal with a great deal themselves and how they go about it. So it was a very fast-moving, fast-paced kind of operation as well, because when over that time, around 2009, we were trying to really push and make headway in Afghanistan and getting certain territories back and pushing the Taliban out. So, but what comes from that is a high casualty rate because of all the operations going on, and obviously it's just basically one of those things. So there was more people coming in injured and seeing to that rather than going, right, this guy got injured and now let's look after him. It was basically, we just need to keep these guys alive at the moment. And that was kind of priority. And, it was, you literally had a ward full of guys with various different injuries and needs and everything going on. So, yeah.
Going back to, I guess, with the immediate psychology support coming in, you're still in a state of shock to an extent. So yeah. I guess there's only so much we can do at that stage. But then also I want to tie into a few bits that you were saying, obviously, because it sounded like from quite a young age you either wanted to be a policeman or a soldier, and that became almost like the definition of what you wanted to do and who you wanted to be. And to think that you did something wrong almost feels like it attacked your whole self-worth. Yeah. At that point.
Yeah.
And then going back to the guilt angle, were there other soldiers who didn't make that operation? Were there ones that passed away during that operation where you were saved?
So very lucky enough, no, there wasn't, not on that specific operation. Again, due to the nature of the unit and the work we did, we had other guys on another operation a few weeks before my incident, and we lost 3 guys there, where they've conducted an operation actually deep into the desert, and their vehicle got hit by an IED, and literally, the vehicle was literally, we were picking up pieces of the vehicle. So there's that, but not that night. So I was the most severely wounded soldier that night, and then my sniper partner, he had a few fragmentations in his leg and in his calf, and a few other shrapnel wounds from some of the other guys. But that, luckily, unfortunately, that was I was the only seriously wounded guy.
So we've touched on it a little bit about helicopters being a precious resource and psychology support not being as good as it used to be. And again, doing a bit of reading on I saw that your mate Stu Coxford was blown up in a Jeep. Was that the event that you were referencing there? Or
no, okay. quite later on, yeah.
But there was a big issue at that time about the vehicles the army using not being able to withstand an IED.
That's right. Yeah.
What's your take looking back now and kind of saying, was there an element of negligence in terms of the situations that some of you and your kind of teammates were put in, and where do you think it is now?
I think if you look back on it, you can probably pinpoint and say that maybe there was that. But as a soldier on the ground, yes, we didn't always have the right equipment. We didn't have the right kit, but we got given something, and we had to make best use of it. We were physically prepared to it to the best that you possibly can. And yes, kit and equipment plays a problem, and that was a lot of time where we fell short. But sometimes when a task is required from you or a job needs to be done, you make the best of the scenario. Yes, and I think you only look back, and in that moment, you don't see that as a problem. And I think it's only when it really goes wrong that you kind of look back and go, well, how could we actually have mitigated that? Yes, have we had more protection on the vehicle or a certain build of the vehicle, with the V-shape and the blast getting reflected away, this and this and this, we would not have lost Private X or Corporal Y or sustained various injuries. You can always look back on it, but really, at the end of the day, we had a job to be done. And
it seems like it's almost drilled into you from day one. Like, you're talking about going on runs in -2 in shorts and, trainers, walking through ice cold puddles and stuff like that. Is it built in with your mindset from the first point, like really just not to question? You're there to, enact orders.
Yeah, to a degree, exactly. You're there to follow orders, and you just have to. So the parachute regiment's motto initially is Utronik Paratus, and that says ready for anything. And like I say, you just have to be ready for anything. And whether they go do this or go there, well, what do we have to our exposure and how do we make that happen? But you also have to be 90% of our jobs as well, or 90% of our operations never went to plan. You can only plan so far, but until you're on the ground, there might be a building that wasn't on the aerial view that you had earlier on, or it wasn't clear, or there's a wall where there shouldn't be a wall, but you have to improvise and you just have to go with it. And it was similar to kit and equipment most of the times.
And given you've got that mindset of obey orders, does that influence your thinking of the man who fired off that RPG? That essentially he's on the wrong side, but he was obeying orders as essentially you were. Is there ill feeling towards whoever that person is, or is it kind of just seen as as harsh as it sounds, a fair fight, I guess?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a fair fight. But at the end of the day, it's like you say, he's probably just a soldier as well.
I'm just trying to think how you reconcile it in your head, I guess.
Yeah. He is, at the end of the day, again, just a soldier. And, there's no division really of what a soldier should look like. We've made an image of what it should look like, having body armor, having a helmet, having a rifle. We couldn't identify a soldier between a civilian because, they all were the same. The only difference was whether they had an AK-47 in their hand or whether they didn't. But like you say, for very little money, or even for the fear of his family, he might be forced to fight. A lot of these guys are farmers, and the Taliban will come in and say, well, we will kill your family, we will rape your daughters and your wife, and we will take all your land if you don't pick up a weapon and fight for us. So a lot of them don't have a choice. And then there's obviously quite a few that does and make an active choice to do that. We've seen plenty of guys who fought and moving through the area, and bodies that you didn't have to go and search them for extra weapon, and again IED devices and body lost for words now. The bombs,
the
suicide vest, and you go and you pick up the guy's shirt, and then they will have like a Liverpool FC tattoo and Man U fans, and there's people literally at the end of the day were like, some don't have a choice and some actually actively make a choice, and these are guys that actually live in this very same country than us at certain points of the year, and then they go out and be summer fighters to get paid or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's quite a mixed bag of sometimes when you are in a scenario like that. But in terms of my situation, yes, that guy, whatever situation he was in, the only way I saw it is that he will win the fight if I gave up. If I gave up on life, basically they win, or at least that guy that pulled the trigger. I'm very confident he's not with us anymore. But in retrospect, if I gave up on life, if I felt miserable and took my own life or gave up in any sense, the Taliban wins, because there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us that, paid a price in a certain way of losing limbs and injured in various other ways. And if all of us were, imagine taking them out and being useless to society, that's a big chunk. So basically left with one choice, to carry on with life.
So going back to your recovery, when you came to that dark place and felt as if you'd be better off dead, in a strange way, was the guy who fired that RPG motivation to think, I'm going to push through?
Yeah,
I'm going to prove him wrong.
Yeah, to a degree, exactly that. And I came to that realization of exactly that if I give up, I'm giving up on my mother, my father, my sister, my close friends, and other family members, and that guy eventually wins. And I could not see that through. So that's where I made it was like a light switch moment that evening, that okay, I'm not going to be a soldier anymore. I'm not going to be within the British Army anymore. I'm not going to be able to do the job that I love doing so much. But what can we do? Let's go out there and find it out. Because I know I'm going to get come across a lot of barriers and a lot of things I cannot do and things I'm going to struggle doing. Let's figure out a way how to do it. And if I can't, that's fine. Accept that and move on to something else. And that's basically how everything started in terms of the expeditions, the climbing, the treks, and then eventually cycling. So yeah.
Cool. I think that's definitely going to be something we're going to pick up in the next episode. So you're actually going to be our first ever guest, which is a 2-part special.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this wasn't really a regular podcast, but I've definitely found it really powerful.
Yeah.
No, I'll be happy to be back.
So we'd be happy to get you back, and then I think the stories just go on and on. We've got an attempted Everest climb, North Pole expedition.
Yeah.
Paralympic medals, World Championship medals. So we'd be very happy to have you back if
that would be great.
If you didn't find this too troublesome.
Yeah, just squeeze it in a diary.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I guess before we get you on for next, obviously everyone knows that you're a Paralympic cyclist, but you're heading up to Glasgow this weekend for a competition.
Yeah.
So tell us your thoughts on that. I think it's, from my point of view, I think it's one of the great elements where Paralympic sports incorporated into able-bodied. Good crowds, good atmosphere, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts about it?
We're very much excited about it because, as you say, it's that integration into the able-bodied events that paracycling desperately needs, because for years we've been saying this and wondering, it's like, why is it that these events are separate? This is I think the second showcase event. Now there was one last year in London with I think only one event, the Kilo, that a number of riders partook in. And then this year it's opened up to a few more events, the team sprint and the pursuit and a few others races for the tandems as well, which is great. So we want to see this integration and activity or number of events grow over the number of years. But it's a great showcase for paracycling. Again, putting on a map, getting people into it, getting people excited about it, and the exposure to it. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same as the able-bodied guys. It's just it's frustrating for us when we just don't get the same coverage. We don't get the same kind of support towards it. We just have a few bits missing and slightly different and having to make adaptations. Other than that, it's still entertaining and it's still, quite competitive. So these events are amazing, and we're very excited to go and show Glasgow what we've got. And like I say, hopefully more of these in the future.
What day will you be racing? And what event?
So I'm racing tomorrow night in a team sprint. So the qualifiers for that.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Well, we've got tomorrow to get
Phil's
there,
very convincing, actually, to be fair. Such a charmer.
I didn't think you were racing tomorrow for that.
To be honest, I didn't know I was racing tomorrow until I saw the program. Saw the program today going, we're actually racing tomorrow night. And then I've got the pursuit first thing Friday morning, and then the final for the team sprint Friday night. So nice. Yeah.
And obviously people can keep track with the media coverage, but if people want to follow your story day to day on social media and things like that, we always give our guests a chance to do shout outs for sponsors, social media, all that kind of stuff. So if you'd like to.
Perfect.
The floor is yours.
So obviously they can follow me on all accounts from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter at Jaco Van Gas. And then, a big shout out to the people and the companies that stood behind me over the last couple of years. I'm sure we'll get into next week as well of how I come to be back on the team, having left it. But to get where I am today, I've had Legacy Education Alliance, LEA, supporting me from day one when I approached them. And then also the Wiggly Group, which is a Midlands-based company, which has been hugely supportive of me. And then a number of slightly smaller companies, Core Clinics, Core Health and Wellness. They've really, Stefan there has supported me, one of the best chiropractors in the world. And he really keeps my body in shape so I can do what I need to do, because with the injuries and all the different bits that's shorter and longer and everything, my body goes through quite a lot. So this guy is really magic with his hands, and he keeps me injury free most of the time. So really big shout out to all of them.
And
thank you, Dan. And Thanair as well. a company that helps with a little bit of altitude adjustment training. So,
I've seen a bit about that. We should talk about that next time.
Yeah.
This is always the most depressing point in the show for Phil, because Danny King kind of set the precedent of listing off about 10 sponsors, of which Phil has.
And everyone else.
Yeah.
So here we go. The next 15 minutes.
Great list. So maybe they're looking for some ambassadors from Philip Hines MV. Who knows? Maybe, anyway. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on. We'll definitely get you back on, and I'm sure there's plenty more stories to dig into. So
tune in for the second part coming soon, hopefully.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Might not be next week, might be the week after.
Or the week after that.
We
don't know.
We'll figure something
We'll
out.
figure that out. I mean, if you're willing to come on a podcast the day before you race, I'm sure we can figure that out at some point. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jaco.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.